Well, it is the 2nd of July. Welcome to the show. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim. Apologies for that. We're just recounting on the issues that were before the National Assembly yesterday, where the members of the National Assembly have successfully, of course, renamed in their legislative proposal of the National Government Constituency Development Fund when it comes to the Constitution of the Kenya Amendment Bill 2025, with key proposal is that to rename the NG-CDF, normally known as NG-CDF, to the National Government Constituencies Decentralized Fund, a move aimed at shielding the fund from future legal challenges and securing its role in grassroots development. You do remember that the courts declared them unconstitutional. Well, the members of parliament have found a cleverly way of renaming that NG-CDF. Yesterday, it was a historical moment where over 300 legislators convened on the floor of the House to vote for this particular bill that has now moved to the Senate, despite the fate lying at the hands of the senators during the third reading stage, which was the final step before the bill proceeded to the upper house. Was that a total of 290 MPs voted in person, which 3 participated virtually, as were witnessed in that particular instant. Now, the bill had earlier passed in the second reading stage with the overwhelming support. During that particular stage, 304 legislators in parliament voted unanimously to back the legislative proposal co-sponsored by the Ainamoi MP, that is Samuel Chepkonga, and Rarieda Member of Parliament Otienda Amolo, who clearly stated that during that particular public participation, over 90% of Kenyans supported NG-CDF and the work it's doing at the 290 constituencies. Is that the case? That is what we're discussing with my guest. Before I introduce my guest this morning, I want to give you that particular story on the floor of the House that was led by none other than the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Masika Wetangula, and the Majority Leader, that is Kimani Ichung'wah. Have a look.
This bill, Honorable Speaker, and also assert, as was said by many members, that NG-CDF is the most impactful fund that this country has ever had in the history of our independence, Honorable Speaker. True, Honorable Speaker, is just to say that NG-CDF is not in competition at all with our devolved funds and our county governments. Honorable Speaker, if anything, NG-CDF supplements what the national government is doing and also what our county governments are doing in offering services and service to the people that all elect us.
Mr. Speaker, I stand also to support this constitutional bill. But Mr. Speaker, I want to speak to the Senate, our colleagues, Mr. Speaker, and request them to support this bill. Because, Mr. Speaker, this bill is not about members of parliament. It is about Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. Because any money that is devolved benefits the Kenyan people, Mr. Speaker.
Through public participation by over 230 entities and individuals, 98.5% supported this. We are quite sure that if we took this to a referendum, we will still get the same threshold. And anyone who therefore thinks that they can curtail this process, know you are fighting the people. Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply.
Present and voting, 301. Voting virtually, 3. So total votes, 304. The ayes, 304. Nays, nil. Abstentions, nil. So the ayes have it.
Indeed, the ayes had it in that particular aspect of ensuring that the NG-CDF comes back in another form known as the National Government Constituencies Decentralized Fund if it passes through the upper house. Now, my guest this morning is none other than Benson Gitau. He is a youth and governance expert. Welcome, Benson.
Thank you very much.
Next to Benson, that is not doctor, that is Siokau Mwinde, the advocate and the chair of the Thika Mediation Center. She's not Simgeni Hapa. Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
And then finally, the doctor in the house is Dr. Isaac Hassan, a governance expert. Daktari, welcome once more.
Thank you very much.
Maybe let me start with you, Daktari, given that you're senior here. We start off with the reaction. What did you make of the proceedings yesterday on the floor of the House?
It is the moment that we always applaud our members of parliament when it comes to issues that concerns them when it comes to things that have more interest to them than the people who took them there. Of course, they all go to the House and they all vote yes. And that's why you see nobody could logically reason differently from what they wanted. Meaning then, the interest that they have brought forward or before the House was their own interest, and they did not reflect mainly on how that will be impactful to the people who brought them to that particular House. And therefore, I think if they operate effectively that way on all aspects of their legislative role, oversight role, as well as representation, then it will be very good. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to become a member of parliament, and if I was in that parliament, I would have thought of a different view. I would have had a different view than what our members of parliament currently have. Why? Because there is no need of a member of parliament whose role is an oversight, legislative, and representation to do a development project in a constituency. They can still ask all other mandated institutions to do the same and then do oversight. They still have the power to do oversight. I would have appreciated if they would have empowered themselves, give themselves more power to oversee both the basically the national government, the executive development funds or development projects, so that when they say the executive has not implemented this particular project the way it is required, they have the powers to stop it and do it otherwise, and even cancel those contracts. But now when they are compromised and they are given their own, basically what happens is that the doctrine of separation of power is compromised. And therefore we tend to think, as much as it's a great thing for each constituency to get some development fund, the same fund would have been allocated to an institution that can develop, can implement independently outside the legislatures, and then they do their oversight role. Mm-hmm. But again, this is the way Kenyans always want things to go, particularly their leaders. Mm-hmm. And therefore, we will say, perhaps let's assume that what they have done was good. But the only thing I can tell them at the moment is to make sure that when there are other pending bills that are before them, which has stayed even more than 2 years, 3 years, mm-hmm. they should also wisely debate on it and conclude and finalize it. Okay.
And Wakili, maybe as you react as well, tell us how did we get here so that the legislators can even go to rename the fund itself through this particular Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2025 to see what we witnessed yesterday on the floor of the House?
Firstly, I'd want to condole maybe from the past protest that was there. Yes. I believe there are people who lost their lives. Yes. Many were maimed and they're still in hospital. And I wish them quick recovery. Yes. Now, getting back to the order of the day, it is more of constitutionality and legality of it. The High Court declared that it is unconstitutional, given that in 2003 we had a different constitution, which allowed CDF to conduct all this oversight for basically ensuring that maendeleo inaenda mashinani. However, in 2010, we had a different constitution. And currently, we have three arms of the government. We have the executive, we have the judiciary, and we have the legislature. Yes. And now the legislature has three functions. And more so, of course, you said there's oversight, representation, and to legislate. And it is quite unfortunate that when it comes to division of funds, we find that there's misuse of those funds. So it is best now to follow the Constitution and ensure probably through the National Assembly, they are able to get other ways of allocating those funds to be able to help the people uko mashinani. Yes. And
Benson, as you also give us your opening remarks, you've just heard the Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah clearly stating that NG-CDF has been impactful. In your views, has it?
In my view, I will say yes, 50%. I can say I have found it very impressive to the community.
when I am standing here, I'm standing for the empowerment program and how the bursaries, allocations, and people in the community and the impact. Maybe in another way, the community does not understand much about the bill and the pending bill or whatever you have been saying. What they really care is, am I going to get the bursary allocations? And I would say the bill for this legislation, it's unconstitutional. There are some things that we need to work on. I found it very queer. You found the legislature is the same person who is running an oversight, is running the show, is the chairman. You can run oversight for yourself. You cannot, let's say, you cannot run the show at the same time run the oversight for yourself. So I would like the amendment bill to be done that is comprehensive, that will help the community to build up. Because here we are talking about the community. We are talking about the Mama Mboga Pale. We are talking about the disability. We are talking about so many things. So when I'm there in the community, there are so many things, so many cries. And also, we are going to also look for the population. The population, when they are doing this allocation, they also have to work with the numbers so that the distribution can be equally. So you found some constituency, they are given a lot of bursary, and then you found the population does not cover like Nairobi. Let's say where I come from, Bakassi. I would like us to look at that angle. Okay, for me, the bill is okay, but the oversight, it's what we need to work on. If we work on the oversight and we implement the authorities that are able to see and to monitor how funds are allocated. Especially I had the issue of misappropriation of funds. These people, they are not even accountable. If you go right now, we say every constituency we want to see the report. They are not accountable for what they are doing. So we want accountability. You understand? Yes. And this also legislation has already impaired the constitutional, because this thing has been operating without proper oversight committee. So if right now, if I am the MP for the past 8 years or 10, if you ask me, let's say for example, if you ask me, can you give us what you have done, they cannot produce. Yeah. You understand?
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. let me go back to you. Given that you heard what Benson is saying, and earlier on you had mentioned talking about in terms of oversighting this particular fund, but you see, Dr. there is an NG-CDF board. What is their work?
I think that before we get to that point, I just wanted to enlighten Kenyans in regards to the amount of resources we are talking about in this the National Government Constituency Development Fund. Every member of parliament is allocated approximately 150 million annually. Meaning then that totals to 43,500 million annually for the 290 constituencies. And if you multiply that for the 5 years they are there, it's roughly about going to about 600, 700 billion. And that's massive amount of money. If you look at the duration in which this fund was effective in the constituencies, and you look at the impact it has, it is just it's just alarming, because you will realize that quite often CDF money is used for political publicity. And therefore, we need to understand why it is necessary for a member of parliament to separate themselves from the executive, because they are not the executive. When you talk about national government, we are talking about the executive. And indeed, members of parliament are not part of national government, according to our constitution. And therefore, we are guided by the principles of this constitution, and if we want to bend it because we want to do it in our favor, then it will be an issue. Coming to your point,
NG-CDF board.
Yes. The board. Coming to the board. This board has been instilled in order for them to do the secretariat for the members of parliament, as they do not have modalities in managing that resources. We know very well government resources go through channels in which they can be disposed of. And the board role is basically to facilitate the members of parliament to use that money. And you will realize that in every constituency, they will form what is called CDF committees. And it is this committee that is supreme in making the decision that is given to them by a specific member of parliament. And the way they operate is that a member of parliament comes with a list of items that he wants to be put into the CDF fund, and then themselves will go into approve. But the board's rule is that they cannot do anything outside what the member of parliament wants. Sometimes you will even realize there's an overlap. Abdulaziz, sometimes it is good to tell each other the truth. You realize that a member of parliament renovating a classroom which was constructed by a previous member of parliament, and in the bidding of that particular allocation, it is indicated that a new classroom has been constructed. That is the level of conspiracy, the level of corruption that we have on the ground there. Teachers are given the same contracts to do the classrooms so that they are able to do the returns from their respective schools. They are able to keep the secret of what has happened. I know very well in some constituencies, many of them actually, let me not say actually some, many of them where the same work has been done by 3 subsequent members of parliament. And every other time the construction is new, but we do not see the class expanding. Secondly, you realize that someone putting a classroom in a village where the children in that village are less than 20. And then you will realize that it is good to have a form of, institution like school in a villages which are coming up. But when you see that the village has no even single teacher, when you realize that the school has no single scholastic materials, you realize when the school has no simple basic chalk and duster that will be used for teaching or that aids teaching, then it's a crisis. Now, why is it important that a member of parliament must do development when the same development is referred to as National Government Constituency Development Fund? There is something which is not right. And therefore, this particular purpose of this fund, if approved, then as usual, there's no need of us respecting our constitution. Everyone must do what he thinks is right with him, rather than doing what is in the constitution. Finally, I have had a conversation with some colleagues, some friends, members of parliament. And a member of parliament tells you, I challenged them on this issue of CDF. Is it must that we should have actually CDF? And then someone says, actually, it is useless for someone to be a member of parliament if there is no National Government Constituency Development Fund. And the argument is that what will you tell the people that you are going to do? What development will you bring to them? Why do you want to bring development when there are people constitutionally mandated to bring development? Those are the national government and the county government. Historically, Abdulaziz, let me, I think I've taken a lot of time. I want to give colleagues a chance. But historically, the essence or the rationale of CDF was when we were being managed by the county, what do you call the national government, where there were no these devolved governments that currently are in place after 2010. The reason was that the executive, which was headed by the president then, will not go into know the specific needs of each constituencies and each constituents. The reason as why that money was put in place is because they were closer to the people. But now, how close are they to the people in terms of their mandate? They are no longer closer. We have ward representatives who are the MCS. We have the county government, which their mandate is to make sure that development goes up to the ward level, and theirs will have been an oversight. The only funding that I see makes sense and is logical is the Senate oversight
yeah, we'll be getting
fund.
that. We'll be getting
Thank
to
you.
that. Wakili, let me come to you. You just heard the brief that Daktari has just given. So, in your view, where you sit right now, do you think the members of parliament have addressed the legal issues that were raised by the courts?
I'm not here to say what needs to be done or what not needs to be done, because the constitution is clear that we have the national government and we have the county government. Now, in both the national government and county government, we'll have double funding if both have to continue with the funding. And you can see the likes of Ndinde Nyoro. He's really been doing a good job. We don't dispute the fact that the CDF has been doing a good job. I know people who've benefited from the CDF, especially when it comes to bursaries, schools being built, especially in those rural areas, you know, and building roads, the boreholes that are being done in those rural areas, you know, all that has been done. However, the constitution still stands to say that it's unconstitutional. And Article 201 clearly states that revenue distribution should be equal amongst all the two government arms. Yes.
Okay. And coming back to you now, Benson, in terms of what Daktari and Wakili here are talking of, in terms of ensuring there is fairness and ensuring that at the end of the day people benefit from not only bursaries and other developments that are being done through the NG-CDF, where are the people in this particular aspect of demanding accountability from these legislators? Are we demanding for that accountability as Kenyans?
I think it's very important because we're talking about the government funds. And, sorry, I have found that most of members of parliament saying I'm giving bursary, like they are the one owning the show. They are operating like an empowerment program. Like I operate an empowerment program, I can say I'm giving 1,000 student paycheck for the school fees. For them, they are taking it like a sideshow for their campaigns. And where we need accountability is where the government should allow the mwananchi to access the information that is regarding the activity, because the mwananchi is the one who has elected, brought that MP to the seat. They have the say to ask for accountability. And most importantly, how do we acquire accountability? That's how we should ask ourselves. Because these people are very sneaky. They are people that they don't want the law to be applied. That's where they eat. That's where they get money from for campaign. And we know how they do it. And that's why we are sitting here. We say they can pass the bill. They can do whatever they want. As what we need to do, we don't want them to be the part of the oversight committee. I want another body that they can oversee the activities. That's why I was here and I repeated, brother. I said, you cannot be the same teacher, same student. You don't want anybody to be there. You are cooking your things there, and nobody knows what you are cooking. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I am an empowerment program. I may not be very expert on legality, but I will say mismanagement of CDF has been there in historical background, and the way I'm supporting my brother and my sister here. There is no accountability. And how do we bring accountability to the ground? How do they want to know? Do we need to gazette what the expenditure is done? What I would like, each constituency should have a portal that is accessible to everyone. You understand? And then there should be a news line pinned on the MP office that shows the distribution of how he is allocating the bursary. Because let me ask you a question. If today I'm in Form 1 I have seen some of the MP giving the same person for 10 years. He never finished the school. Now I'm wondering if I'm Benson, today I'm given a bursary this year, and Benson given a bursary the next year. You understand? So there is no equal distribution of resources.
But then again, Benson, you've just heard what Rarianda, Member of Parliament, Otiende Omolo, clearly stated on the floor of the House. There was public participation. Were those issues raised in that public participation, especially in Bakassi?
There are no public participation followed. They are just gimmicks. You understand? It's like selecting like 200 people in a room. You come and take cameras and pictures and you say we have a public participation. Brother, do you know what is a public participation process? How it takes? Public participation is a lengthy process. There has to be a civic education. There has to be mobilization. It has to be accountable from the ground. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm talking from the fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me go to Daktari now. With those facts Benson is clearly stating, you've just heard also the majority leader Kimani Ichung'wah, Daktari, clearly stating that they are not in competition with the devolved units. We know what has happened between governors and members of parliament for the last few weeks or so when it comes to NG-CDF and the county funds, because we have even seen even the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga entering the fray, clearly stating that those funds should go to the county government. So is it political at the end of the day?
Yes, I totally agree with Baba. You know, we always say that if something does not work and you want to push in, you know, when a carpenter makes his table, there are these joints that they drill and they want to put in. If it doesn't go in, you start shaping it until it fits inside that for it to gain stability. That is what we are trying to do. There is no place for NG-CDF and members of parliament in our constitution. And what they are trying to do is try to panel beat to make sure that it fits within the system. There is no way that you can differentiate devolved funds or devolved government's development initiative from a constituency fund development in the same locality. Simply because the mandate that we know CDF has been playing is education and security.
Yes.
Why do we have security money to go to a member of parliament when that is the role of the executive, and we have a whole institution, the security apparatus, have all the ability to do their own development within the exchequer's money that they are allocated, the budget they are allocated. That is one. Secondly, we have education. The Ministry of Education, we know very well the Ministry of Education has been the longest known institution, and we know development has been going through that. So why are we trying to look at development based on an individual's interest? This is where the challenge is. So the only way to differentiate development via CDF and the devolved government is the members of parliament to be given their oversight and legislative role, full stop. The rest of the people who have been mandated to do issues related to development within that locality, let them do. For example, they often talk about CDF. My sister, who she said she knows quite a number of beneficiaries who have gained from CDF. I totally agree with you. I also know few of them. But look at a scenario where the governor or the county government will want to do CDF because the only thing that you can be proud of is bringing up the next generation. And if you don't pay fees for the next generation, then as a leader you are nothing. That is one. Secondly, we have the national government bursaries. We have the HELP, Higher Education Loan Board. This is still exchequer's money, these loans that are given to students at the universities. And now we are claiming to have a CDF that also does bursaries. So why is it that everyone wants to do that? And why don't we just constitute a bursary fund model where we know every constituency gets this amount of money every year for their bursaries, and that goes to the institutions, so students just report. other than having the money goes to a member of parliament, and you know very well politically what happens on the ground, that if I have not voted for you that particular time, or I have opposed you, then I don't become a beneficiary to this fund. Why should we not respect the law of justice, the law of equality, the law of transparency, so that these resources are utilized the way it is expected to be utilized, rather than giving to an individual who has an emotional attachment to the people who have voted him in and not those who voted against him. So I think the challenge is that we are trying to slot in things that don't go anywhere far with our constitution. And if our members of parliament, because we have given them the mandate to do a legislative work, and they pass a law to protect that, fair enough. But again, as our young man has just put it forward, we must have an oversight authority for national government, because members of parliament's role as an oversight and representation has failed to do their role, because they want to do development. So we will agree them to do the development. We will agree them to pass the laws for national government concept development fund, but we must also make sure that we get an institution that does oversight for both executive and themselves for their funds, because the amount of money involved we are talking about is not a little money. And if this is removed out of for example, we remove the 5 years from this fund from getting to members of parliament, we can actually offset all the debts this country has, so in the 5 years, so that we do not have debts from that we are paying for the next 30, 40 years.
And of course, Wakili, you do remember there was a very big case that was going on between the Murang'a governor, who took the control of budget to the courts, because the control of budget is clearly stating NG-CDF cannot issue bursaries. Ward representatives are also issuing bursaries. You're even seeing governors issuing bursaries at the end of the day. Now you can even add the Senate oversight. Most likely you'll see some of the senators even offering the same bursaries. So where do we draw the demarcation of what these leaders are doing between the governor, the senator, the MP and the MCA?
As Dr. has said, most of this CDF funding have no constitutional backing. And that is why we stand to say that the legislature should stand to work on what they have been put there to do, because their work is for oversight and to represent. Because basically, if you look at the ground, you find that most people will only vote for probably the MPs because of what they've done. They look at probably the MP has built schools, the MP has built the roads, but what Kenyans really don't know is that most of this funding comes from the CDF. And even so, we need to follow the constitution and the constitutionality of every bit of the legislative work that the parliament needs to be done, because the executive cannot be put out not to do what they're supposed to do, because most of these things are supposed to be done by the executive. Yes. And
Benson, when that confusion was coming out between the control of budget, the governors, the MPs, at the end of the day, according especially to the majority of youths, they were saying at the end of the day, we get to receive more money from more legislators and ward representatives and senators and governors. Why should we start stopping them now?
You know, it's time to press the button. It has come now too much for embezzlements, and you see, issue of CDF is a cash cow for milking the public money and using it for their own gain. And the way I will support the way CDF has been working is unconstitutional. And then allocation of these funds between the Senate, between the parliamentarian, between the MCAs, should be governed through the law. It's only the law that can stipulate how much, how it's going to be distributed, at what level. In most cases, even those MCAs, members of assembly, I even don't know when they give the bursaries. I have not even ever had someone, an MCA, giving a bursary. I don't even, and when I know those bursaries, they're usually given to them. So we have to draw the line. We have to come open and say CDF is operating constitutional illegally. There is no legality, and there is misappropriation and mismanagement of those funds. And they are not accountable. The government itself cannot even account and say how much they have given. We need the auditor of control budget to come in, the auditor of the general, to come and run the show, so that we can able to pull the rat out of the hole and see how these people are operating. You get what I'm saying? So what coming to your point, the key thing we need to put the law. And for that law to be implemented, the mwananchi has to know the right, at what condition. And these bursaries, they are given for the rich, and the poor remains without anything. Some of these people, I've seen them selling bursary checks, selling 1,000 bob to a mama mboga. Can you imagine now, who is now supposed to help other? It is a very complicated forest that we need to deforestate issues the way they are supposed to be, brother. We are not moving to the right direction. That's why they are clapping their hands there in the parliament. And even if they pass that parliament, Jay-Z are tired of, right now, Jay-Z have been injected with a lot of propaganda. And everything now in the government is like, no. Let us follow the law, and then we know where the lines are drawn. As what we need is to see equality distribution. We want to see that generation is not wasted. We want that vulnerable people to enjoy, because those funds are for the needy. But according to you, are those people needy? According to me, are those funds given to the right person? Does it go to the right generation? That's why we are complaining about education, school fees. We cannot do one thing every year. Every year we have the same problem. We have to press the button and say no, it's over.
Okay. Dr. let me come back to you. Let me circle back to you. Those concerns that have been raised by Wakili and Benson here, in terms of ensuring those lines are drawn, and at the end of the day, something interesting you've just heard on the floor of the House, clearly stating that if a referendum is held today in retaining this particular NG-CDF, it will remain because of the work it is doing on the ground. Do you agree with those legislators who are of that opinion?
Abdulaziz, I think, as earlier stated, sometimes it's difficult to push for something which is not pushable, simply because there's no ground. We are ruled by the law, and the grounds that we always understand, or the argument people have, is that the members of parliament think that there is local understanding and representation. And because they are understood very well by the local people, and they are their representatives, then they must address their issues. That is not true. I mean, representation is a very clear thing that every person must know. They are trying to directly link between the national government and the constituents. But now, does that warrant for them to run a fund within that constituency? Because the link between them and the constituents is the mandate we gave them as representative of the people from that particular area. So I think members of parliament will think that if they do not have funds they manage, they think they are irrelevant. And that's why quite often you see they have solidarity in passing this amendment, so that they justify the cause for them to have the funding. Now, there is also the issue of political accountability. You realize that a member of parliament who is supposed to look at the interest of the people that he has elected him, so that the executive do not fail to do their role in working for the constituent. the county government ensures that they have reached and done their role within that doctrine that they have been given. If now that is not looked into, and you yourself as a representative will want to manage resources, then definitely the Auditor General will have a challenge. If who will go into question the CDF fund in Parliament? Because when the county government do not use their resources wisely, and the Auditor General reports anomaly in the funds that were allocated, they come to respective committees in Parliament.
Yeah.
And that is the role of the members of Parliament as an oversight, or at the Senate. So who will going to oversee these funds that are managed by the overseers? Shall we going to have these resources just utilized by the member of Parliament the way they want? Because the Auditor General will report in terms of his audit report. But where will that report go? Because the reason as to why our Constitution has elaborated the oversight role is because of misuse of resources within respective arms of government who have been mandated to deliver that. And if that has been broken, then I will come. If I'm a governor and the Senate is questioning me on regards to misappropriation of funds, I will ask also, why is a member of Parliament whose CDFs has been spotted being misused, not questioned? You know, I have never seen a member of Parliament sitting before a committee or accountability public accounts committee and being questioned for misuse of CDF. Because CDF is not a new thing. We are not introducing a new thing. So that element of accountability is lost. But I think there's something you mentioned in regards to the Senate. I understood very well that the Senate funds, oversight funds, is to facilitate them to go and do the oversight within that. I think their money, the money for oversight, has no allocation for development. And if that is the way they want to go, because they want to show the electorate within the county that they also do some development, then we are going to the wrong direction. So, meaning then, members of Parliament will have been given an oversight fund to do their mandate, not giving them development fund for the constituency, and yet we know very well the role of oversight will be compromised. So that's why I'm saying, in a nutshell, that we must differentiate their role as a legislators, representation and oversight, from the development of the executive mandate, because executive has the mandate to do development in all parts of the country through the state corporates or state ministries. And the county government has also been mandated to do similar development so that it goes closer to the government, to the constituents or the people of that county. We have not seen that. The third thing that is likely to curtail the whole process of oversight is the fact that politics in Kenya is always in the forefront. And every politician will want to show that he has done ABCD to improve or change the life of the people he wants to represent. And that way, their role will never be very clear, because they will look at the development fund much intense than what do we call than the oversight they are supposed to do. Of course, we have already seen in the legislation role, they have already failed. We know there are quite a number of constitution that requires bills to be effected, which are still pending. Now this is 15 years down the line, closer to 15 years down the line, and yet those constitutional articles in the Constitution have not yet been functionalized. So I think I know there's no way, we have no control over whether this bill will pass or not, because even the public participation we have seen in all issues that requires public participation have never been done effectively. And in any case, anything that the public brings as an opinion is brushed off and is never put into system. And that's why we often say that if there is any public participation that is done, it should be published and said, this is what the public has said, this is what we have accommodated, this is what we cannot accommodate because of ABCD. And therefore, if that does not that transparency does not appear anywhere within our systems, then I think everybody will just do the way they'll achieve their own individual interest and goal. And that's why we think national government constituency development fund is not appropriate for it to be constitutionalized, as already the courts said, who are the interpreters of our laws, said it is unconstitutional, and there is no pressure that forces members of parliament for them to have this fund, other than or thinking that if this fund does not come to them, they cannot do their role. So I think that's how I will have put it.
Okay. Wakili, you are nodding in agreement, especially when it comes to ensuring that there is that demarcation, especially between all the leaders within one devolved unit. But we're talking about that Senate Oversight Fund. The money that they're supposed to be allocated to is to ensure that the work they oversight, especially when they go around the country to assess if the referral hospitals are working in the devolved units that are being run by county governments, if they are done that way. At the end of the day, if we see senators engaging in what Dr. is talking about, development projects, what will likely happen? And then secondly, we're also talking about the impartiality of senators. How will they be impartial at the end of the day, serving in the same county? They're supposed to oversight that particular county, and the money is coming as well from their kitty.
Truthfully, there'll be a bit of confusion and conflict in between. However, there is something he mentioned, and he said that as a country, we don't know how those funds are really allocated, because you will not know who really needs that fund more than the other. Now, in the event the senators get in, and the MPs as well probably continue with the funding, with the help of the chiefs probably in each and every village, they can assist in terms of getting into the grassroots and getting probably the right people who need to be getting those bursaries, and where they're supposed to have probably the schools built, probably if there are any other county functions that are supposed to be done, they are going to be able to reach to more people, more than the MPs who are reaching out to them. Yeah.
And I want to bring something up here, Benson. We do have constituencies that even do not have legislators, because we do not have even an IBC in place. The commissioners have been appointed. They cannot go to that particular anniversary towers because there is a court proceedings currently ongoing. As you respond to that as well, you are local leaders on the ground. What are you doing to educate the people on the ground to ensure at the end of the day they get their rightful, what is due to them, in short?
You know, I'm running an empowerment program called Ben Empowerment. And for us, we don't compete with the government. We only chip in where government cannot able to get their hands in, because we are there down. So for us, we have programs that we know the community needs. We have programs that support youths. We have programs that support women. We also have programs that support disability. We have programs that support sport. Actually, we have a quite number of them that we understand the need, the community need. So for us, it is not us to know what the local MCAs are doing, though we try to collaborate and work with them. For us, we usually work on you see, for us, for NGOs, for the CBOs, they have their constitutional way of working.
But what I'm asking is, how do you chip in terms of educating them? You see, you're bringing up strong points when it comes to they should be holding their legislators, the governors, the senators, and one representative to accountability. How do you ensure that at least you educate them on how? Do they even know they can recall the MP?
Yeah, they have. Okay, for us, we don't. Okay, that is the work of the activist. There's a difference between being an activist and being in a community CBOs. And you can also, I can say, civic education is the only way that people can understand how their cries can be heard by the government. So we can only use the civic education, and it's a very broad way of training them. Let me tell you one thing, brother. Anywhere you try to call more than 500 people to train them about what they should, their constitutional rights, those people, they will always, you will always rub the shoulders, because they will think like you are coming to remove them from the seats, and it will be very chaotic. So one way that we usually do for training, we usually have seminars where we usually educate them. We have people on the ground who we try to emphasize. Also, we have the platforms. Like in Ebakazi, there are so many platforms. I see people discussing about the civic education and their rights through online work skills and all this kind of. For those who don't understand, who doesn't have the gadgets to access the information, we usually call them and try to explain to them how things are running. And also I work with the chiefs. Chiefs are also an important role in the community. Because for me to understand how the community is working, I must incorporate the administration of interior to help me to understand more.
Yes.
You understand? So there are so many ways which I will take hours to explain that I have already installed in the community.
Okay, Benson. And of course, the conversation continues. We need to just take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll be talking about that particular issue Benson was touching upon when it comes to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IBC. Despite even the legislators passing this particular NG-CDF and GAF Oversight Fund, their constituencies, counties and wards that do not have even representation. What happens to them? We'll be discussing that as well in the next 10 minutes or so after this particular short commercial break. Also, during that particular break, we'll be informing you on some development. Once you come back, I'll be telling you when it comes to the late Albert Ojwang, there is some development to that particular proceeding, so don't go too far.
Hello, fabulous ladies. Welcome to the talk show that's all about sisterhood, empowerment, and unfiltered conversation. We will be focusing on women. We believe in women.
We are really changing.
We are creating a safe space for women to connect, thrive, and share.
Just because you're a woman on a bike, you're labeled in a certain way.
It's not just a talk show, it's a movement.
When they are standing, we need to stand out.
From heartwarming tales to hilarious adventures.
They could ask me, Catherine, why are you learning?
We are turning the spotlight on women who are breaking barriers in their individual fields.
You have to have a vision. You are the leaders of Kenya today.
Keeping it honest and relatable.
Mental health is real.
Yes.
Where there is no communication, there is no relationship.
Join the sisterhood on KBC TV for Dada's show.
It's Women's Africa Cup of Nations, Morocco.
Feel the pulse of a continent, where Africa's fiercest women warriors clash for glory in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations 2024. Africa's top teams, one crown. Morocco hosts once more, ready to etch new legends into history. Rising stars, one stage to shine.
And it is the Copper Queen. They have been waiting for this moment. Here's a chance for a second. South African lead by 2-0 in this final, and he'll never higher.
This is more than football, it's African excellence. It's women's power. Don't miss WAFCON 2024, live from Morocco.
So with us, he's a man of God, but before all this, you know, he was behind bars for 12 years.
The age of 13, mimi nilikuwa responsible kulisha familia yangu. Nikajipata, of course, wase wako na ma gangs nini, so nikaanza tu kuwafuata. Makarao kwa side moja, si tuko side moja, exchange inafanyika. So unajua nikitoka hapa, either mtu anaweza nigonga, either mtu wako ama karao. So walipona karao alichukua kaitupa. Tukiwa tunapita hivi na makarao tukienda, dogi ndio inakuja na money belt. Alafu inakuja inaonyesha nani ametupa.
There is a God who restores, you know. 12 years now serving the Lord with this powerful testimony.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Our discussion continues into the 11:15. We'll talk about what we were talking about when it comes to the NG-CDF and GAF as well as the Oversight Fund, but more about the IEBC composition as we're winding up this particular topic. But we're keeping a close eye at the Ridgeways Baptist Church along Kiambu Road, where the body of Albert Ojwang, the late Albert Ojwang, has currently been brought to that particular Baptist church for a requiem mass. Family, friends and activists and members of the public have gathered to pay their final respects. Outside the church, of course, tearful relatives could be seen embracing, visibly distraught, awaiting for the service to start. You do remember that Ojwang's body will be transported to Homa Bay County on Thursday, July 3rd for the burial at his father's home in Kakwonyo village on Friday, July 4th. That is the particular development we'll be following up on as and when we get those particular links. We'll be sharing them with you. My guests are still here with me. That is Benson Gitau. He is a youth and governance expert. Dr. Isaac Hassan, a governance expert. And Siokao Mwinde, she is an advocate, the Vice Chair, Thika Mediation Center. Let me start with you again, Daktari. We're talking about the composition of IBC. Earlier on, I asked Benson that particular question. We're talking about constituencies, counties without senators, ward representatives, and they do not enjoy this particular funds we're already talking about, because you see some of the legislators were either the elections were nullified after the 22, others it was due to the untimely death of their legal representation, not even legal representation, leaders that are supposed to represent them at the end of the day. So how is it fair to even talk about GAF and NG-CDF and the Oversight Fund, yet other constituencies even do not have the representation there it is required?
The principle of constitutional crisis in Kenya is lost, meaning we do not see any issue when there is constitutional crisis. I know very well before things that are likely to cause constitutional crisis because of you know, the deaths or the timely deaths or that is likely to elapse. Our members of parliament who are burning their midnight oil to make sure that they don't cause constitutional crisis. That is the principle of respecting our constitution, and we don't allow it to do so, to happen basically in that aspect. When we come to IEBC, IEBC is fully constituted.
How so? And the case is in court.
But the challenge is that we have few issues that needs to be sorted out, because we must respect our laws, we must respect our courts. Then until those people who had an issue, the issue are addressed and then the court clears, definitely the commissioners will not take the office or their oath and offices. But the important thing is that they are in place. And it's our legislators, our judiciary that will going to give a green light or advise otherwise if there are any issues that needs to be addressed in the formation of the commissioners for IEBC. But when it comes to members of parliament who left their offices for one reason or another, and yet they have not been replaced. Definitely we know the obstacle. The obstacle is lack of the formation of IBC commissioners, and there's nothing much that can be done in terms of by-elections as per the constitution again. But there are arrangements which are in place. For example, constituencies have neighboring constituencies, and a member of parliament oversees the same CDF as well as does representation for the vacant constituency. Meaning they might be direct gap in terms of having their own representation, but their interest in terms of bringing forward into parliament or into the national government is not lost. Again, we have the county assembly member, we have the governor who oversees all that, and of course the role of the member of parliament, which plays representation at the national level, will have less effect in the fact that currently we have a government, county governments that does grassroots development and addresses grassroots issues. But again, above all, it is the right of those people who have lost their members of parliament to have a representative by constitution, and therefore I would have said that amendment needs to be made on how what do we call the secretariat of IBC could actually conduct by-elections and make sure that we do not have such a gap, a bigger gap like the one now we have experienced. For example, I know you are talking about Banisa constituency. That legislature is the one we have lost early. Yes, and Kasipul and the rest now. But you see, that's the longest, almost now 2 years, because he has been only in office roughly around 6 months.
Yes.
But now they're already 2 years down the line. They do not have representatives at the National Assembly. And therefore, they have all the right to have their representation at the National National Assembly, and of course they have all their right to be represented. And I think the process of electing the commissioners, which was aimed to facilitate all those challenges, were now halted because of the legal issues, which must be respected. But what I would have asked the members of parliament, because they have the power to legislate and amend our constitution, is to give relevant mandate to conduct a by-election, the secretariat of IEBC, and of course be given a threshold, probably 2, 3, but more than that, the commissioner must be there. You know, there are quite a number of ways legally accommodative that can facilitate this process so that we do not experience the same problem that we have currently.
Okay. Let me get your thoughts here, Wakili. We're talking about a crisis. In your view as a legal expert, are we facing a constitutional crisis? Then secondly, what Daktari is talking about, allowing the secretariat, which is led by the CEO of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IBC, there was a clear demarcation between the chair and the CEO. The commission that is being led by the chair, it is their mandate to conduct. So do you agree as a legal expert we should be allowing the Chief Executive Officer of IBC to be conducting such by-elections in the absence of commissioners?
First of all, I'll wish to state that the Constitution is the mother law. And it is the right thing to do and ensure all the legal challenges that are being faced because of politics are not allowed to be done. Yeah, because if we look at the current situation that we have, is because probably everything being politicized, we cannot continue functioning normally. And each and every arm of government should perform its functions as is. Yes, and for the IBC, each and every, the CEO should work as an individual without being forced or being led to do things that are supposed to be done by a different individual. Yes.
Benson,
they should be separated.
Okay. Benson, are we going into treacherous routes, given that you see it is just barely two years to the general election? Do you think even this particular new team that has not been sworn into office will carry out the boundaries delimitations, the by-elections, and then prepare for an election?
I think it's very important to institute IBC, and it will be a factor or a de facto. Having the IBC constituted, and that's why it's called independent. We don't need other bodies to be put. We want it to be the way it is. I don't see why they should not start conduct the by-election, because for that we will know what kind of people we have put in the office. Before we know they can even handle the general elections, we want to see them doing the by-election first, so that we are able to say these people, they are credible and they can conduct fairness in election. So I think that is the most important thing. It will be their first exam. Every Kenya will be watching them. We will be watching them too. We would like to know what kind of people we have put in the office. So I think it should be very fast. We urge the court to move things very fast, so that we don't have the backlash and the backlog when it comes to the 2027. So we don't want the delay, because you can see the temperatures of the nation. You can see people crying, saying we want a new IBC. You can see the cry of Jay-Z's, what they are saying. So I think it's worthy for them to do to do it very fast, so that we don't have a crisis. And you know what the Kenya is all about right now. So let us move very fast. I don't see why we should continue holding that thing. Yeah.
And of course, given that we're entering the final leg of our conversation, let me start with you, Dr. I'll give you 2 minutes each to conclude on both topics, including the NG-CDF as well as IBC. But as you commented, Dr. on your final remarks, we're talking about ensuring at the end of the day we do have an independent IBC. So should we take what Benson is saying, that this will be their litmus test? Should we judge the new commissioners based on the by-elections they'll be conducting across the country?
I think Benson is looking at it from the perspective of the normal way of Kenyans judging the referees. IBC is an independent entity by constitution. You know, we respect the law. And we know very well that if they are given the task, the commissioners are given the task, together with their secretariat, then they have a mandate for a certain period, 6 years. And they should complete their 6 years based on, of course, their performance. The performance is purely on if they breach the constitution. Otherwise, they cannot be just removed out. And to remove them out is not an easy thing. So whether you test them, whether you place them on litmus test or not in the by-elections, that will not change anything. But I think there are critical things that IBC commissioners are before them, and they must be constituted as early as possible. One is definitely the issue of the by-elections, so that the few constituencies, wards, and counties that requires their legislatures or their representations to be replaced, they should do that. Secondly, we know very well there is a boundary limitation that needs to be done. And you know very well, every 10 years, that event comes up. And that's why I was saying we rarely respect the constitutional crisis, because when the constitution says you must do after every 10 years ABCD, and you have not done it, then we are already at the heart of constitutional crisis. And therefore, that is the other one. The other thing that they need to do, which is very urgent, is of course voters registration. After every 10 years, the current existing voters registration can only be used for by-elections, but new registrations will be, exercise will be conducted. And that requires time, that requires resources, that requires mobilization. Quite a number of things are pending for them. Finally, the 2027 election is just at the corner. And I don't think if 2 years down the line, we are able to put a comprehensive plan and preparation for 2027 election, knowing that there are quite a number of international procurements that needs to be conducted, there are mappings that needs to be done, there are cleaning of the registers after registration that needs to be done, the employment of electoral officials who will be engaged in conducting the elections that needs to be organized. So ideally, the table tray for commissioners for IBC is full, and the earliest possibility that they are cleared will give them an opportunity to run this.
Okay.
Then finally, on the National Government Constituency Development Fund, I can see it is pushing, they have enticed the Senate so that the Senate do not reject, because they have also given them an oversight fund. And the possibility of Senate denying that is unlikely. And therefore, then we must have a modality in which NG-CDF will be oversight, and accountability system put in place in order for that resources not to be misused by members of parliament, as well as the Senate.
Okay, Wakili?
There's a great quote by Martin Luther King. The time is right to always do the right thing. History shall judge us harshly if we are unable to protect the constitution of this country. It is going to be quite unfair if we really push agendas that go contrary to what the constitution of this country stands with. We don't dispute the fact that the funds are important for this country, and they've helped different individuals, and we have great people who've also been part of that fund as well. And as a country, we need to ensure we follow the law as is, and ensure we have, we really don't have to politicize each and everything that has to help the common mwananchi, because many people really don't understand why the courts have termed the NG-CDF illegal. We don't dispute that. It is a good agenda that is going to help the people of this country. But however, the National Assembly needs to probably have different ways of approaching these funds, so we can be accountable to each and every cent, because we all pay taxes, and the relevant things that need to be done in this country.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Finally, Benson?
Yeah, thank you very much. And then for me, I just need 2 or 3 things. Accountability. That's why I'm here to speak about accountability. So I want everyone to be accountable, and I want this country to realize accountability is the key of everything, because we are not alone. Other countries are watching us, how we are doing our things. And also, a rule of law must be followed, because if the country has no law, then there is no country. So we must have a firm law that guide and govern, protect each and every person. Also, on the issue of IBC, we want free and fair, you see what I'm saying? Free and fair election in Kenya. We don't want to see those other things we have seen we want accountability. And this way we are telling the president and the court and the parliamentarians kindly to work on the free and fair elections. It's very important, because for us there down, we already had the cries. We know the plan, we know the game, how it's going to be. In 2027, if we don't have a free and fair election.
Okay.
So thank you very much, and I think that's
thank you too. That is Benson Gitau Ngige. He is a youth and governance expert. Dr. Isaka San, a governance expert. And finally, the wakili in the house is Yokao Mwinde. She's an advocate and vice chair of the Thika Mediation Center. Thank you for making time for us this morning. And of course, we're keeping an eye on the Senate. We'll wait to see what will happen, given that after that particular decision of the National Assembly, now it is in the upper house. Do not go too far. On this particular second hour, we'll be focusing on the Social Health Authority. Already my guest, that is Dr. Kemunto Ndimo. She is the Chief Medical Officer at Luton Hospital, is already here in the studio. So don't go too far for that particular discussion. We'll be back in a few.